you go. Perfect.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Just checking in. We got our medals. We finished the triathlon yesterday. Good job here to John. Very impressed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to redo this.
No, you're not.
So yesterday we started off. We packed our bags the night before. We were ready to go. We were up, but we ended up leaving a little bit late, and then we got to transition later than we expected. And so that kind of threw us off a bit. We weren't able to get acclimated to the water like was suggested, and by the time we were situated and ready, we had to be down by the water for a meeting for all athletes. We were pretty excited. A lot of our family was there and friends, and we know that there was a lot of people thinking of us yesterday, and we really appreciate that and all the support and encouraging us. And this, we're here. We were there yesterday based on setting goals that we were tired of quitting on and about following through. And we got the idea from doing this from Paul, who did it with his son, and the persistence of Joe every day asking us if we signed up and never making us feel like it wasn't something we couldn't complete. And unfortunately, we had hoped to do this with Renee, but other things came up, and we know that we'll definitely be doing something with her in the future. We have to do this with you, Renee. So basically how things went for us is John and I got split up. We weren't in the same waves, but John did have Jill in the wave with him, which was great. And we were about 2-3 minutes apart. We got in the water. The water was a little cooler than expected, so I was pretty glad that we had wetsuits on. Took a minute to kind of get acclimated. Everyone was in there kind of fidgeting, so I just decided to kind of hang to the back. It was a treading water start, so I felt it was easier to just hang back, let everyone go, and then do my thing. So for my portion of the swim, it went pretty well, pretty quickly. I felt tired. I wasn't even through like the first side of before even making to the first big buoy, and I was like, what have I gotten myself into? I started to feel kind of a little overwhelmed, but I decided to just kind of keep trying to focus on what I learned swimming in the last 2 months and try to keep going. Turn to my back when I got tired, and when I got around the corner in my usual about the amount of time it takes me to warm up in swim class, I want to say probably about 300-400 yards, I started to get into like a good stride, and did good until I got through to the last big buoy, and then I started to struggle a bit again, and finally made it to the end of the swim where I felt like it was never ever going to be able to touch the bottom. But when I got out, that was probably the craziest feeling. Your legs are just, it's hard to explain, but I got out of the water and I thought to myself, I'm not going to be able to finish this. I couldn't believe how I felt. I didn't run up to transition at all. Took my time getting up there. I did, I guess you could say, jog a little bit as I got higher up and my legs started to feel better. Took full advantage of the wetsuit strippers. Had a pretty decent, for me, I thought, transition time getting out to the bike. So I also thought John had caught up to me and that he was right behind me in the swim, but I was wrong, and so I'm going to let John talk about his swim.
Yeah, I was never close. Like you said, we didn't get acclimated to the water. Very important. You got to get used to it. They said it was 64 degrees. It still seemed really cold. We jumped right in, treaded water. Started off real good. I made it to the first buoy. I don't know how far that was. And then I lost my breath, got a little bit of a cramp, and couldn't continue. I sat there for a while, treaded water. And the lifeguard came up, wanted to know if I was all right, and I'm like, yeah, I got a cramp, and I feel like quitting. I says, do me a favor. I says, don't let me quit. He gave me a noodle. He said, hang tight for a while, use the noodle, catch your breath, go on your back if you want. I did that. Started to swim again. I don't know, maybe 15-20 yards. I had a hard time getting rhythm, getting my breath. And, I said, I'm all done. And he's like, well, you told me not to let you quit, so we're going to keep going. And I don't know who that lifeguard was, but he paddled alongside me with the kayak every time I wanted to stop. You know, he said, keep going, you got this, we're going to go from buoy to buoy. And he followed me from one buoy to the next. And it seemed like it took an eternity. Finally made it to the last buoy. And my feet hit the ground. I was so happy to reach the bottom of the pond and walked out. Like Joanna said, just going from swimming almost like weightlessness to standing on full ground. I was kind of teeter-tottering, you know, walking side to side. It took me a little while to get up the hill. Made it to the transition. That seemed to go okay to the bike and did good there.
So I came out of the transition from the swim to the bike, I thought pretty quickly for me. I want to say it was like about 6 minutes. Got dried off, headed out, and it was like it was a great feeling because when you come out, they have the police department holding up the lights, and you get to go right through, and it's pretty cool. And I felt like I was going super fast. I was getting up to some pretty good speeds at different points in the race, but there was definitely more hills than I expected. The way we did ride the course the night before, but it feels different in a car obviously than on the bike. There was a point about halfway through where I realized, wow, I'm actually doing this. I'm on my own out here. This is all on me. I'm pushing myself. I'm racing against nobody but myself. I'm just out here, and it just kind of like hit, and I started to try to pick it up again more. And then I started to use people ahead of me as targets to try to catch up to, which is kind of easy to do when you're on a road bike and they're on mountain bikes. Unfortunately for them, that's a lot more work, so it's a little easier to catch up to them. So, yeah, I felt pretty good. Got off the bike, legs were feeling a little weird. And other than that, that went pretty good. How'd your bike go?
The bike, I think the bike part was probably the best for me just because I was so happy to be done the swim part. I grabbed my helmet, my goggles, jumped on the bike and took off. It was really good, like Joanna said, seeing the police there. I'm like, they're holding up traffic for us. It's just a really good feeling going past the blue lights. Got on the road just like she did. I was all by myself. And I was trying to think, I'm like, why am I actually doing this? You know, then I looked around and it was just me on the road pedaling along. It was probably about the same thing, probably 3-4 miles into it. And I'm like, I'm halfway through the bike because I'm going to do this. I wanted, like I said earlier, I wanted to quit during the swimming, and it just dawned on me, and it's like push. Came to the first hill that we had to overcome, and I said, I'm taking this hill. I'm making it to the top. I had to slow down, pedaling a little different going up the hill, but I never stopped making it up the hill. Didn't have to walk my bike. And at that point, I think I said, I got it, and I tried to pedal as hard as I could and make it to the next part.
You did awesome, because I was worried about John. He wasn't as good at shifting as I was, and I'm not even great at shifting. So there was one point when I got up on top of the one in the hills, and I thought, I'm really worried about how he's going to be out here on his own. So definitely impressed with how you did on the bike. Very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. I had a good teacher.
Then comes the run. That was definitely the worst. We had both taken in some goo energy packets before the swim, and then I took one in on the bike. And I don't know if that's what caused it, but I got really phlegmy through most of the race, even the swim. So it made the breathing even harder. When we got to the run, the great thing about the run was there's water stops every mile, and that is just mentally great because you're kind of going from one to another, and it's just pushing you along. My jog is very slow, very, very slow. So there was people walking that I could barely, catch, and I found that frustrating. At one point, I felt like I was going to hyperventilate, felt like I was getting a blister. I mean, everything you could think on the run was just wasn't great. Got towards the end, there was definitely more and more people as we got there that were cheering us on, and someone had left the ladder out with water running, and that felt great because it was extremely hot. And finally got up to that last little part there and started to try to pick up my jog again. And it felt pretty good coming in. I mean, as you're going through, you have people cheering you on, yelling your number out that they've finished, and all throughout the race, actually, people that were coming in from running while you're going out on the bike are cheering you on. So that was definitely great. And came in onto the run, and I finished in about 2 hours and 5 minutes total. So I was pretty happy with it. I definitely felt like my bike was faster than it was. It was only about a 13-mile-an-hour bike ride, so I was kind of disappointed with that. I felt like I was going extremely fast, and I wasn't. So that was definitely kind of disappointing. But the run, I'm not surprised. That took me about 50 minutes. So sad, but it's what it was. So
It seemed a lot longer than that. That run just wouldn't
Yeah.
end. It was great though, seeing the water stops every mile. You know, it was a 3-mile run, 3.1 mile run, whatever it is. But you see that water stop. It was like a little award for making it to the next mile. You know, if I push through, I've got water waiting for me at mile 2, and so forth. It was hard. I know our swim coach said make sure you get your feet dried off. I don't know if I had some sand, but I ended up with a blister, I think, into my first mile. So that was keeping me down from running hard. I had to stop. I think at one point I had goo in one hand and I had my inhaler in the other hand. But at that point, it was like I swam, I biked, this is it. I had to make it through. It was really hard coming towards the end, but you hear the bells ringing, you know, the kids ringing bells along the route and hearing people cheering you on. You know it was almost over, and there was no feeling like crossing that line and getting the cold water.
yeah.
It was spectacular.
Overall, it was extreme. It was hard. It was I want to say I didn't think it was going to be easy, but it was definitely harder than I thought. The swim definitely took a lot out of me right away. Getting on the bike, I felt myself still recovering from the breathing on the swim up until about 3 miles. So that definitely hit me differently than I expected. So I would say it's something everyone should do, that everyone's capable of doing, that I'm glad that we followed through and did this, and we're definitely going to do it again. And I wouldn't discourage anybody from doing it. I think anyone can do it at any pace.
If we can do it, anybody can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And someone we just met recently, she did it all, and we were pretty impressed with her, and she definitely just did it for herself and finished strong. And I think that said a lot about why people were there. And you know, there's different groups. We were in with a lot of beginners, and I found that you didn't have to be a beginner to be in the beginner group. You could have been a slow swimmer. A lot of times they'll want to get into that group. So, but we were in there with a lot of people that this was their first time. They all had the same nervous concerns. They were all worried about the swim. And yes, the swim is hard. People will tell you, oh, it's not that bad. The swim is hard, but you can do it. Wetsuits make a huge difference. They give you buoyancy. It makes you very safe. Nothing's gonna happen in that wetsuit. You're gonna float. And I think that makes a huge difference. And there was people everywhere with noodles and kayaks, like John said, and they helped him get through. And yeah, everyone should do it. So if you listen to this all, thanks guys. Thanks for supporting us. There's definitely more ahead of us, but for now we're focusing on the Tough Mudder.
This the next obstacle.
Next one on the list with our team, with Team Piglet.
We made it through, and we didn't quit. I wanted to quit, and the lifeguard didn't let me. So just don't give up. If it takes you forever, it takes you forever. But finish.
That's how we got our medals. You're a dork.